What's up, Steeler Nation, and welcome back to another episode of the Still Curtain podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Jaggi, editor of StillCurtain.com, and joining me, as always, a Still Curtain contributor, Shayne Kubas. Shayne, we've got some stuff to talk about today. We're going to share our notes from Steelers versus Browns, the most convincing win of the season for sure. Yeah. We got the NFL trade deadline coming up here in 2 weeks and change. And we're already starting to hear some whispers out there. I don't know how much truth there is to it, but we'll share what we know so far. We'll obviously give our predictions for Thursday Night Football, Steelers versus Bengals. And we'll talk about the next upcoming superstar potentially on the Pittsburgh Steelers and what that means for the team moving forward, Shayne. But let's start with the news from week 6. Steelers beat the Browns. That's the big one there. They're on a 3-game streak. And I was encouraged by this. I know that the Browns had a lot going against them in this game. You're traveling back from London. The Steelers had 2 weeks to prepare for you. You're starting Dillon Gabriel, rookie quarterback, in his second ever NFL game. But even with all that, Shayne, I was still encouraged by the overall performance that we saw. And I know the score was 23-9. It didn't even feel that close.
No, and I think the problem for the Browns in this game, besides all of the factors you just mentioned, starting with quarterback coming off a London trip, a devastating loss on that London trip, all the things kind of going against them. This is still a team that had won a game against the Packers team that a lot of people think is one of the best in the league and is very capable of shutting people down defensively and just seeing if their offense can even mount any sort of challenge, right? Like that's been kind of their problem. It's not so much that they are a terrible overall team, is that they're really terrible on one side of the ball, and it's prevented them from winning a couple games that they probably could have. Easily could have beat the Bengals week 1, have been competitive in other games, and they really didn't look close in this game. Like the Steelers kind of dominated them from start to finish, especially on defense, but the offense also did some really nice stuff in this game too.
Yeah, we'll get a bigger breakdown of that in just a little bit and the players from that game that were worth noting. But Shayne, let's talk about really quickly some of the former Steelers watch around the league in week 6. We had a couple big names pop up, none bigger, in my opinion, than Justin Fields, but for the wrong reasons. I mean, this was as bad as it gets. I don't know if you had a chance to watch that game. I didn't watch it live, but I went back and watched it. Yikes, man. You're talking about -10 net passing yards by the end of the game. So 45 passing yards. Was sacked for -55 yards. -10 yards is what Fields was able to muster up on drop back situations. It doesn't get any worse than that. And I feel for him, but man, maybe he's just not a quarterback, Shayne. Like it's really rough.
And this is really disappointing for a lot of reasons. One, because we saw, unfortunately for us in week 1, him have maybe his best professional football game.
Yes.
Right. And there's a lot of reasons why that happened, but it still was promising, I thought, for this team. But I think ultimately the biggest problem with Fields is that he finally last year for us in the 6 games he started was in an environment that kind of asked him to just manage the game, make a couple of big plays with his legs when he could, and it allowed him to slow things down, to actually start to develop a little bit as a pocket passer. Not a ton, but at least was going in the right direction. And then you end up with the Jets. You don't have a whole lot of talent on that offense outside of Garrett Wilson and some of the offensive linemen. And it just isn't working. Like they're not able to get him to get the football out quickly enough to avoid some of these terrible plays, especially the sacks. And I think the worst part is that he kind of just seems scared to throw the football. And anytime you're a quarterback, if you are afraid to throw the football for whatever reason, whether you're afraid you're going to lose your job by throwing interceptions or you're just not seeing the field, whatever it is, ultimately, that's pretty much when it's over for you, at least in that current situation you're in. You cannot be afraid to throw the football. It's a big reason why, like, this is kind of not a deep cut, but a player that people don't talk about much because he's a backup right now. But when I watched Malik Willis play football for the first time in the NFL, I was immediately like, I don't know if this guy will ever be able to play because he would not throw the football. He was legitimately felt like he was afraid to throw it. And that's what Fields looked like in this game. And until that changes, which I don't know if it does with the Jets especially, he probably should be on the bench for Tyrod Taylor. Like that's probably where we're headed with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's been as ugly as it gets so far. The Jets are 0-6, 0-5 with Justin Fields, the starting quarterback. Missed a game in there where Tyrod Taylor had to come in. And even without throwing an interception this season, I mean, he's spotless in that regard.
It's got to be the worst 0 interception first 5 games ever. Right? It's really bad.
Definition of game management and not in a good way. And so it's been really, really rough. I would not be shocked, even with the investment they made. I would not be shocked if the Jets make a change at some point, but it's like, what do they got to play for? And then they might clean house again. I don't know. I don't want to make this all about the Jets here, but let's talk about George Pickens for 1 second, because this is a hot button topic right now. Steelers fans are upset, and I understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, you gotta know this wasn't going to work out in Pittsburgh. So George Pickens just had another monstrous game with the Dallas Cowboys. He is now on pace for, if you prorate the first 6 games of a season over a 17-game season, we're talking about a George Pickens season on pace for 91 receptions, over 1,400 yards, and 17 touchdowns. That's an all-pro level year. I mean, there's just no denying it. Fans are upset. You only got a 3rd-round pick for this guy. He's 23 years old still, Shayne. But I think recency bias is kicking in here. Things had gotten so bad with Pickens in terms of the antics, the media sessions, the blocking effort, the route running effort. You just couldn't go another year with that. And I don't think that we wouldn't be seeing the same results, first of all, I think, if he was on Pittsburgh right now. And it's just a guy that we said all along, going back to his rookie season, do you trust this guy on a second contract? Is he going to show up, work his butt off, and play for you? And I still think the answer would be no. I still think the Steelers needed to make that Pickens move. It's greatly benefiting the Cowboys right now. But we'll see. When CD comes back, he might come back this week here. Is Pickens going to get disgruntled if his targets get cut in half? Is he going to get disgruntled if the Cowboys go on a 3 or 4 game losing streak? Like, those are things that it's possible that can happen. And we can see the old Pickens return.
Yeah, I mean, I understand Steelers fans, and I have some friends of mine especially who are really big fans of Pickens who were not happy with the move, and I understand that. But you do have to look at it from the angle that you just talked about. First of all, whether DK Metcalf was here or not, whether it was just him, whether it was both of them, he was never going to do what he's doing right now with the Steelers. Like, they do not throw the football as well, frankly, or as often as the Cowboys do for a lot of reasons, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, quarterback play and game situation is a big part of that. And 2, like, Pickens, we knew how talented he was. You and I, every time we talked about him, whether it was positive or negative, you had to bring up, like, yeah, he's a freak in a lot of ways. Like, he truly is. He's a special type of athlete and special player. But at some point, if you're playing in an offense, especially like the Steelers, where you're not going to be a high volume guy, you're not going to be this guy that's getting 9-10 targets a game. If that's a problem for him, and it clearly was with us, he starts to act out. He starts to do weird stuff on the field. He just is a weird kind of guy, honestly, in general. Like, it's kind of his MO. And it just wasn't working with us. And I think that's fine. I think getting a 3rd-round pick for a player that you weren't going to re-sign, that another team would be making better use of, like they have so far with him, is fine. Like, in retrospect, yeah, it looks bad on, like, the stat sheet, especially. You're looking at a guy who's going to be one of the more productive receivers in the league, potentially, even if CD comes back. Doesn't look great to get a 3rd-round pick for that player, but it's more than just the numbers he's putting up on the Cowboys that determine whether the trade was smart or not. It's, were you going to sign him at all, which they weren't, and what can you then do with the money that you would have spent on him and also that pick that you got? So it's going to be a while before we know how good of a trade this ultimately was for either team. But so far, I do think you can't really say it's going not our way, and also the Cowboys are getting what they wanted out of him.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of fans, Shayne, they're thinking, well, it didn't have to be an either or between DK Metcalf and or George Pickens. It could have been both. They had DK months before they traded Pickens to the Cowboys on May 7th. So maybe you could have had both. Maybe you could have went this year with both of them.
At least for this year, maybe, yeah.
But like you said, would you re-sign him? No, you're not going to spend $60 million at wide receiver. At least I wouldn't think you are. It's just not the Steelers' way of business. They haven't been that way ever. They paid one high-profile receiver, and they've kind of drafted and replaced the other guys after that. Trends can change. But if things went as poorly with Pickens as they've gone the last 3 years in terms of the antics, there's just no way that he would have signed a second contract in Pittsburgh. No. And I just think that they need that change. And so this could be a trade that works out for both parties. It's certainly working out for Dallas right now, but
it's not helping them win
before the storm. Like we've seen this song and dance so many times before with Pickens that, I mean, just wait. just wait and see, because yes, the pace is incredible right now. He's been really good. CD's coming back. Dallas could be eliminated at some point down the road here, and we'll see how things transpire from there. So far, though, obviously looks like a great trade for the Cowboys. Shayne, one other player I want to talk about real quick. Juju hasn't been on the Steelers. Juju Smith-Schuster hasn't been on the Steelers in several years now, but got into a big altercation in week 6 after the game was already over with Brian Branch, a player the Steelers considered drafting instead of Joey Porter in 2023 with that 32nd overall pick. That was kind of odd. You saw, going back a few minutes before the game ended, Juju had a blindside block, and there's no other way to put it. Blindside block on Branch, should have been called for a penalty. I don't know if that's what escalated the whole situation, but that got pretty chippy there with players having to be pulled off of each other at the end of the game in Kansas City against Detroit there.
Yeah, that seems to be what kind of triggered Branch to do what he did. Now, obviously, his own coach and pretty much everyone else has been like, yeah, you can't do that, right? Like this, you can't really do that type of stuff. And I get that, but Juju's always been one of those guys who likes to antagonize the defense, right? Like obviously there's the famous perfect hit that is supposed to kind of be payback for what he may have potentially done to Antonio Brown's brain, but that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, that's what kind of Juju's always done. He's been very antagonistic throughout his career on the field, and usually it works out for him. I think he kind of does it to the benefit of his team usually, but not surprising that he would be in a situation like this, but also definitely more so bad on Branch's part, I would say, especially with the way the game ended. So,
all right, enough about former Steelers. If you guys like talking about that, let us know in the live chat here. If you don't really care, we don't have to do it. Shayne and I can talk about any of these players. We watch all these games, but just let us know what you're thinking on that. All right, Shayne, let's move on and talk about Mike Tomlin and his comments about the Joe Flacco trade. Have you ever seen? I mean, it's just. The trade is bizarre. I will say
it is.
You don't see interdivisional quarterback trades very often, especially knowing that the quarterback that the Browns traded was going to start for Cincinnati. There was no denying that.
It wasn't like a backup option or something.
Yeah. So we knew that. I mean, this could have ruffled some feathers. Mike Tomlin didn't have to say what he did. I mean, it's his prerogative, whatever he wants to do. But he was very disgruntled about this, and it's clear that Joe Flacco is just living rent-free inside his head right now
to some degree.
By the way, Tomlin is 11-11 all-time against Joe Flacco. He's got a 500 record based on his Thursday Night Football, which we'll save that for later, but he could fall below that this week. Tomlin was very upset about this, and what he had to say was this. To be honest, it was shocking to me. Browns general manager Andrew Berry must be a lot smarter than me or us, because it doesn't make sense to me to trade a quarterback that you think enough of to make your opening day starter to your divisional opponent who is hurting in that area. I get where Tomlin is coming from, but if you understand Tomlin, and we very much do, it is about the here and the now. Nothing else matters.
Yep.
But when you look at the Browns team, Shayne, you can clearly see the Browns aren't going anywhere. Andrew Berry knows that. Kevin Stefanski knows that. They switched to a rookie quarterback, a third-round rookie early in the season, because they know they're not going anywhere this season, and this is not their year. And so to them, they don't care if they have to play another game against Joe Flacco. They certainly don't care if the Steelers lose to the Bengals. It's no skin off their back at all. In fact, they would be fighting against the Bengals to get a higher draft pick potentially. So if it also makes sense from where the Browns are coming from. Is Tomlin making way too big of a deal of this, Shayne, or does he have a point here?
It's just, here's the problem. In a different situation where the Browns are remotely competitive and didn't bench this player already this early in the season, and they did this, then he would certainly have a good point. He would at least be right to say, like, that's weird. I don't like that. I wish you guys didn't do that. That's dumb. This doesn't matter. Like, I'm sorry. You watch the Packers game that they played. Like, this doesn't matter. Like, is Flacco better than Jake Browning? Probably, right? Especially in the sense of, like, he actually can kind of still throw the football right now. Browning never really was a great thrower of the football. But it just doesn't matter this much, man. Like, I respect Tomlin for getting fired up about it, because I understand why he would. But, like, there's a reason why this trade happened, and it wasn't because necessarily that the Browns made this colossal mistake by doing it. It's because they just don't care. Like they didn't care. The Bengals were willing to give them literally anything for a 40-year-old quarterback. Like, all right, we're going to play him anyway. Like it just doesn't matter that much.
They traded a backup quarterback.
Literally, yeah, they did, and it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, he was the opening day starter. Being the opening day starter for the Browns. I mean, I'm surprised you and I haven't been the opening starter for the Browns at some point. So it doesn't matter, right? This is not some bar you have to clear to like be a good quarterback.
Yeah.
So it's just the whole thing is funny. I think it's very funny that Tomlin said this, but I don't think it matters that much, Mike.
Shayne, let me tell you what I think.
Yeah.
I think Tomlin is being so petty with this. I really do. Can't you count it as a win that you don't have to face Joe Burrow?
Yeah, just take the win on that one, man. You're facing the right Joe here.
That's the thing is you talk about, sure, is Flacco better than Browning? Yes, I would agree that he is. You just dodged Joe Burrow twice, and you're complaining about a backup quarterback getting traded, a 40-year-old backup getting traded within the AFC North. I don't think that he handled it well. I don't think that was the professional response. And I don't care if you want to come at me if you think that I'm wrong on this. Tomlin could have said, we're going to prepare for whoever the Bengals put out there, and we're going to go and try to win on Thursday night. Instead, you made it all about you and, well, I don't get to play against Jake Browning anymore. Like, I wasn't a fan of the response, honestly.
It's just
you already have a – what is it? What have we got? A 3.5 game lead in the AFC North. It's like, go take care of business. This Bengals team doesn't have a defense. This Bengals team is resorting to their third quarterback of the season now because Joe Burrow's toe injury that required surgery. You've got an advantage in that sense. Go take care of business. And in the same way, Shayne, I want to bring up the comments he made a few weeks back where he's like, oh, we want Anthony Richardson to stay upright. This was referring to last year against the Colts. We don't want Flacco in the game. I'm like, if that is, you don't feel like you can beat the Colts' backup quarterback, then you have an issue there. There's a problem. You need to be more confident in the team that you have, and you need to play to win the game and not just play conservative football. So I do take a little bit of an issue with some of the comments he's made in recent weeks. And I just think it's the wrong overall mentality and approach to the game.
I think so too. The only thing I'll say is it's either that or he just really respects Joe Flacco to the point where it's weird, and that maybe we should worry about him being like the backup next year or something like that. Like that we got to worry about that now too. I think a little bit.
I mean, Flacco went like a whole 3-year stretch in his late 30s where he didn't start. He didn't play games. He was just on rosters. So. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I understand that you've struggled against Flacco in the past, but it's not the same quarterback that he once was. You still caught a massive break not facing Joe Burrow, who for my money is a top 3 or 4 quarterback in the NFL pretty easily. I mean, just count your wins where you can get them. But anyway, if you're not the better team than a defenseless Bengals team that, I mean, is staring down 2-4 with their third quarterback, if you can't win this game in that situation, then you probably don't deserve to. I mean, quite frankly, that's what we're looking at right now. All right, enough of my rant about that. Cam Hayward just had some hilarious comments about Thursday Night Football. Aaron Rodgers against Joe Flacco. He called it the Icy Hot Bowl, and that's obviously a direct reference to the brand there of getting that icy hot patch on after the game. These guys are old. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is 41. Flacco is 40. This will be the second oldest quarterback matchup that the NFL has ever seen in terms of starting quarterbacks facing each other. We did see the other one happen 3 times in 2020. Ironically enough, it was Tom Brady at 43 years old and Drew Brees at 41 years old.
It had to be those two, right?
Yeah, it was those two. They played each other twice in the regular season and once in the playoffs. So, but there was only one other matchup. It was those two guys was the only other matchup older than the one that we're about to see tomorrow night for Steelers versus Bengals. What do you make of Hayward's comments, Shayne, and how do you feel about this icy hot bowl in general?
I do think it's kind of funny that he's talking about it just because Cam himself is not that far away from that age. So it's like even funnier if you think like he's like, honestly, me too. Like we had the ice bowl, now we have the icy hot bowl. I think realistically, this being the matchup this early in the season where you're seeing Joe Flacco play for his second team this year in the AFC North, and then Aaron is still out there slinging it. It's kind of cool in some ways. Like I think fans of the AFC North from 2008 on are probably kind of laughing at this game a lot. They're like, man, Joe's still out there. Got Aaron in the like. It's just a funny thing. I did see some. I forget where I saw it, but someone was talking about how like, man, these two quarterbacks still playing tells you all you need to know about modern quarterback play. And I'm like, I just think it's funny. I think Flacco still playing is just a weird quirk of the NFL. And then it's Aaron Rodgers, right? Like he could probably play for a while before he truly looks bad, right? Like can't play at all. So I think it'll be fun. I do think it's a fun name for it. And I just hope that the game is remotely interesting, if nothing else. So it's at least fun to talk about later.
Oh, 100%, Shayne. And one of my favorite gifts is of Robin Williams in Jumanji. What year is it? I mean, you could say what decade is it?
Yeah.
With these two guys have played across 3 decades now. Is it the early 2000s or the mid 2020s? And so fun matchup to get. We'll talk about that more in just a little bit here. All right, Shayne, before we move on to our topics for today, I want to talk about, let's get the AFC standings in here. As we look at this conference right now, the Steelers are second in the AFC. The first is the Daniel Jones-led Indianapolis Colts, who had that on their bingo card 6 weeks through the season, entering week 7 here. It's interesting. And the Steelers, like I said, have a huge lead on their division rivals. I don't see anybody coming back from that. I really don't. And I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch here, but the Ravens theoretically should have been the biggest threat to this team. They are 1-5. They are effectively eliminated. No team has done that before. In fact, if you go back before their week 6 loss against the Rams, Shayne, when they were 1-4, historically, they only had a 5.9% chance of fighting back from that record. Now you are effectively eliminated in terms of what NFL history has to say. So can they win out and make the playoffs? Yes. Can they lose 2 games and still make the playoffs? Yeah, they probably could as a wild card team. I just don't see it happening with this team. And the defense was atrocious, whether or not Lamar Jackson has been on the field. How good do you feel about the Steelers being second in the AFC and first by a long shot right now in the AFC North, up 3.5 games?
I feel really good about the division because, again, I think you pretty much just have to get to 10 wins. I think if you get to 10 wins, the division's yours. I don't think any other team wins more than 9. I think the Ravens could claw their way back to 9 wins if Lamar's healthy down the stretch. I think that's possible. Their schedule's pretty soft overall, but they would probably have to beat us both times realistically as part of that run, which, again, they've had trouble doing that when they've had much better teams. So it's like I don't know if that's going to happen, especially twice. So I'm not really worried about the division. I will say I'd be very surprised if they finish second in the AFC. This team has some things going for it right now. They're 4-1 for a reason, but I do think there are several teams below them in the standings right now that are just better football teams, and that will eventually play its way out. And so in that terms, like it's nice to be there at this point in the season. Again, you want to build that cushion up so that way if you do have some struggles down the stretch, whether it's injuries or just facing better teams, that you're not out of it or anything like that. But I do think the division is obviously where you're most excited about. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if things keep trending the way they have in Pittsburgh's last 2 games, then I'd be getting more excited about it now.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I think that, the Steelers are going to take this division.
It'd be really hard.
The time to put a bet on it was like 2 weeks ago when they were like plus 220. That seemed like pretty easy money there, but we'll see. Anything can happen. The Steelers could lose their starting quarterback. Like it's already happened twice in the AFC North.
Hey, Mason's been able to do stuff recently when he's had to play.
And again, it doesn't seem to matter which quarterback is at the helm for the Steelers since Ben Roethlisberger. They've kind of just gotten there, at least to that winning record, and winning record might be all that it takes. They might be the only team in their division with a winning record this year. But anyway, looking really good in the AFC standings so far. And there's always a chance. There's always a chance for that number 1 seed. It depends on how good of a football team can you be. You can't afford to drop many games for sure. You're looking at 3-4 losses maximum. Any more than that, you've got no chance at that first round bye. It's still in play. I think that's the best way to say it at this stage of the season, about a third of the way in. And so as good as we could ask for at this stage of the season. All right, trade rumors, Shayne. these are starting to fire up here.
Mm-hmm.
Even as we are recording this show, we're going to dive much deeper into this next week. And by next week's show will be 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks under the trade deadline, NFL trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, though, it's Ricky Scoops, the guy with the little dog emoji there popping up again. Chris Olave might be on the table from the New Orleans Saints, Jacoby Myers. I'm talking wide receivers here, potentially ones that have been linked to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll see what happens. I wouldn't be shocked. It would hardly be the first time the Steelers traded for Mike Williams. Last year, they traded for Allen Robinson a few years ago before the season started. But this is not something that they are not used to doing. They've done it, in fact, a couple times under the new regime of Omar Khan and Andy Weidel in the front office already. And so it would not shock me at all, a team sitting on a 4-1 record, if they would be willing to maybe make a move like that they think can get them over the hump. Shayne, personally, I think that Roman Wilson needs to be used a little bit more. You need to see what you have in him. But if you're not comfortable, they're the ones that see him every day. If you're not comfortable with that, maybe go out and get a veteran that you think can get you over that hump, as long as it doesn't like really eat into your trade capital next year.
Yeah, I think based on the way the season has gone so far and where they currently sit, I do think this is the year that if you're going to add a legitimate piece to the offense, this is the year to do it. I think that the infrastructure in place offensively allows you to do that, because you obviously know who your number one is with Metcalf. You're starting to figure some stuff out with the tight ends outside of Pat Freiermuth, which we'll talk about at some point, I'm sure, again, including trades, maybe, we'll see. But this is the year to do it. You have a comfortable lead in the AFC North. You probably are going to get a home playoff game because of that. It's very unlikely that you won't. You're going to win this division almost assuredly at this point. You should be trying to maximize your chance to actually go on a run here. And that's kind of what they were trying to do, obviously, this year without mortgaging the future. And I still don't think they should. But if you can get a Jacoby Myers for a 4th-round pick or even a 3rd-round pick, if you can get a Chris Olave, who there's issues with that because he's going to need a contract, the concussions, all that good stuff. But if you can get him for cheap because of his situation, I think you have to try to do it. Like, I think that would really help Aaron Rodgers a lot. I give him other guys he can trust to get the football to. I think especially the one I keep going back to, like Jacoby Myers just feels like an easy fit here. Like, does pretty much everything DK Metcalf doesn't do well, he does well. So it makes sense schematically there. And it would just really kind of help alleviate some of the pressure, I think, in like the short to intermediate passing game too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then from what I heard, Shayne, it might be less than what you're anticipating there. You might be talking about a 5th or even a 6th-round pick.
Awesome.
Which a 6th-round pick, you take that to, you're on the phone right now and you're getting it done. So yeah, I don't want that. Like, it is all about maximizing windows. If you think that this is a window, and I wouldn't have. I mean, before the season started, Shayne, I didn't think that this was going to be an actual window.
Not really, no.
Entering week 7 here, the Steelers are trending in the right direction. Their defense looks strong, albeit beating up on some backup quarterbacks last couple of games. And the rest of the league kind of looks a little vulnerable at the top. And so I would say that this is as good of a window as you've had in any year since, I don't know, 2017. Like, you've got a chance right now to at least do something. If you think that you can snap that streak and get something going, maybe throw a 4th, 5th-round pick at a wide receiver. If you think that they can help you in the postseason this year, we'll see what happens. That's something that we will dive much deeper into on next week's show, though. Shayne, let's get to our notes from the Steelers and Browns, takeaways from week 6. We'll start over here with the offense and quarterback Aaron Rodgers. I mean, doing what you would expect him to do in this game. Plus, I would say a little bit more. There was a couple plays he made on the run there. He avoided pressure, the little flip pass to Jaylen Warren there.
Hysterical.
After Jaylen Warren had an incredible cut block already on that play, gets back up, and then goes out for that. I saw somebody on social media said, "Hey, this is Aaron Rodgers doing Patrick Mahomes thing." I said, "Did you not watch Aaron Rodgers in his younger days? Like, this is who he was."
Hey, a lot of people, a lot of fans haven't seen Aaron, like that version of him. At least, like they may have seen like older MVP Rodgers, but not like 2010, 2011 Rodgers, who was doing some.
And those plays are rare these days. And then obviously the rolling to his right, throwing across the body to Connor Hayward. I mean, that was just really impressive throw. He's still got an arm. He's still got the velocity that was on full display. Rodgers in this game, 21 of 30, 235 yards, 7.8 yards in attempt, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 115 pass rating, 63 QBR. Shayne, what to me, though, is just shocking, and I know that this will always ruffle some feathers. I like PFF for some of their charting. Some of the grades are very hard to make sense of. And what I mean by that is entering week 7, Aaron Rodgers is the 33rd graded quarterback by PFF. He's not even a top 32 quarterback by their grading standards here. What do you think of that, Shayne?
Well, so here's the thing. I was actually going to bring up that this is the first time that they thought he played well this year. I think inherently the issue with PFF in terms of their grading for quarterbacks, especially, and I think it's a good way to illustrate, especially when it comes to this situation we're talking about. The grades sometimes are better illustrations of what a quarterback is asked to do than it is how well they're doing the thing they're being asked to do. That's a good way to put it, yes. So Aaron is getting the ball very quickly this year because he kind of already wanted to do that, and then also he's had to because the offensive line play hasn't been great. And there hasn't been a lot of what people would consider impressive throws on tape. A lot of like what they call big time throws, right? Like you hear that term thrown around a lot. There hasn't been a ton of those because he just hasn't really had an opportunity to take them or to try them, and also just not really a big part of his game at 41 years old. So because of that, anytime he has a mistake, whether it's a turnover worthy play, like a true like almost interception or an interception, fumble, whatever it is, his grade is going to tank dramatically because there isn't the big time plays to make up for it in their grading system. So I'm not shocked that he's graded poorly by their system, but I would also tell you, I think if you ask the people grading him and you even ask like some of the higher ups there, they would tell you he's not the 33rd quarterback in the NFL. Yeah. But it's just the circumstances of the way he plays makes him grade poorly compared to a player that has more big time moments and maybe even still has more turnover worthy plays, but they're offsetting that more with big time plays. So that's what I'll say about that. You could take that or leave it, but that's where I think that's coming from.
Yeah, Shayne, your explanation of that was spot on. I think that what really gets fans irritated, though, is when you see the rankings, when you see where he's ranked.
Yeah,
you see that he's below Cooper Rush.
Right. It's like, he's better than Cooper.
Yeah, he's below Cooper Rush. He's below Carson White. Where is he? Yeah. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
Oh, Rodgers. Yeah, below Cooper Rush, below Geno Smith, below Carson Wentz, below Tua, below Russell Wilson, who was benched. Yeah. So, yeah, I understand that you can get irritated with that, but like you said, it's more off of the game plan and what he's asked to do.
Yes.
And for that reason, that comes up with the low grade. However, I will say this week against the Browns, week 6, he had an 82.9 grade, the second highest graded player on the team, the highest graded player with at least 10 snaps of all the Steelers offensive players in this game. And so definitely seeing the Aaron Rodgers, what we hoped we'd see from Aaron Rodgers, we're seeing it now. We knew that he wasn't going to be mobile like in his old days, but it's enough. It's still enough to escape out of the pocket, to throw on the run. He's not a threat to run the football. Don't need that, though, if he's going to take care of the ball and be able to do some of those things that he used to do. All right, Shayne, let's move on and talk about the running backs here from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Go down the list here. Jaylen Warren, 11 carries, 52 yards. Good game for Warren. Gainwell, 6 for 22. Caleb Johnson, 6 for 15. Johnson's numbers are really skewed here because they played him with loaded box right on the final drive of the game, and there was no running lanes at all. I thought he did a decent job before that. Had a 9-yard run, a couple of decent gains, and then went backwards on a few of those right at the end of the game when the Browns just knew that the Steelers were eating the clock and there was no threat to do anything else. Overall, 28 carries for 100 yards, rushing as a team, only 3.6 yards an attempt. You were playing a very stout Browns defense, though. And so I think the fact that the Steelers were able to hit 100 rushing yards in this game was as good as you could have asked for against this D.
Yeah, and I think honestly the yards per carry was over 4 at one point before they kind of started just running into boxes at the end of the game. Again, like the goal for this game, for me at least, in terms of running the football, was make it something that you could realistically do and not be a wasted play, right? Like against a Browns team that has been as good as really any team has been against the run this year, you just had to make it something that you could go to at some point, right? Like it couldn't be a situation where, all right, Aaron, you're going to drop back every first and second down, and we're just going to have to figure it. Like that was what you needed to avoid, because no matter how well they did against Garrett, which they did a really good job of game planning against Myles Garrett, if you had to drop back 50 times or 40 times, you weren't going to stop him forever, right? It's just not how it works. Same thing happened to them, unfortunately, on the other side for them. So I think that in general, the running game was really good. Warren obviously was the headliner there, as he should be. It was really encouraging to see Caleb get any touches, considering Jalen was back. Like, I was kind of expecting him to be basically did not participate in this game. So I was glad to see that he got some touches at the end there. And also Kenneth Gainwell, like, as a runner, I think he, especially, week 4, he was great. He was fine in this game. We got to stop throwing this man the ball. Like, at least in the ways we're doing it.
Yeah. 6 targets in the passing game for 14 yards. I mean,
you can't do it, man. Like, you cannot get under 5 yards per target to anyone, in my opinion. Like, if you're doing that, stop doing it or do something different.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That frustrated me, but I think the running backs overall played pretty well in this game.
Yeah, let's move over and talk about the receivers now, Shayne. Yeah. I love this split. If you could have told me going into this game, DK Metcalf was going to have 95 yards and a touchdown, even on 9 targets, I'd say sign me up. If you would have told me Darnell Washington's going to have 62 yards and get 5 targets in the passing game, yes, please. This guy should not leave the field. This is what we've been screaming. We said it on last week's show. We've been saying it for a while now because he's just a matchup nightmare. He acts as a third offensive tackle. He can stretch the seam. You can obviously, he had a 36-yard catch and run. I mean, is he the first 300-plus pound tight end to ever have a 36 catch and run in the NFL? Like, I'd have to go back and look to see if that's happened before. The guy is huge and he's threatening, and could have had another. I mean, he could have been pushing 100 yards in this game if Aaron Rodgers didn't overshoot him on that other very similar route that he had along the right sideline there. You don't know how he overshot the 6'7" tight end, but that was another explosive play that they just narrowly missed right there to Darnell. I don't ever want this guy to leave the field because they are so much better with him on it. And if you've seen the splits so far, I broke these down last week and I updated them early this week. The Steelers now, when Darnell Washington plays over 40 snaps, they are 7-0 since he came into the league. The Steelers average 121.5 rushing yards per game. I mean, what is their point difference? It's way high. They're up like 50 some points in the point differential during those games. I don't have the stats in front of me. Those first 2 are correct though. Up way in point differential. Some of this has been dictated on the game plan. Sure. Darnell is just way more special than what Jonnu Smith or Pat Freiermuth offers. And I just wouldn't take him off the field. I really wouldn't.
No, there's no reason to at this point, because again, like, you look at this game with the tight ends, if we want to talk about them as well here with the receivers. Darnell, obviously the headliner here for good reason. Jonnu still inefficient with his targets, but got 4 of them. Pat Freiermuth was the least productive tight end on the roster technically, because Hayward had 1 catch as well, and he had 1 catch. But
you count Spencer Anderson, but
right,
tight end eligible.
Sure, but like, realistically, it feels, and it's sad for Pat because I think he had a really good season last year. I think he works well in this Arthur Smith offense generally. I just think that he's the odd man out because of Smith being there, and I wish that was kind of flipped, at least based on the way they've produced on a per catch basis. But I do understand Jonnu is a better fit for what Aaron Rodgers wants to do in the passing game, is better fit for what Arthur Smith wants to do in the passing game. You look at the way that he wins, a lot of it is behind the line of scrimmage and short throws, which is what he was great at last year too. That's what Aaron wants to throw. The intermediate kind of stuff is not where Rodgers lives right now, and that's where Pat has lived historically, especially for his most efficient targets. So I do think it's just kind of a misfit at this point. Like, I do think trading him might be the best thing for both sides, especially if you can get something of note back for him. But the receivers in general, especially Metcalf obviously is the headliner here. Roman at least caught a ball. I guess at least he was throwing a ball. I'm frustrated by that. I know you are too, but I don't think anything is changing in that regard. So we're just going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, Shayne. I just found that statistic too here. The Steelers have outscored their opponents 172 to 119 when Darnell Washington plays over 40 snaps. Again, that's predicated on the game plan. Also, I'm looking back at this stat that I dug up from Freiermuth before the game. So yes, this was during the bye week. Freiermuth was on pace for 29 receptions, 276 yards, and 0 touchdowns. That's gone down since this last game. So now over his last 3 games, he has in his last 3 games, he has 2 receptions for 17 yards on pushing 100 snap. Like it's it's actually, we're looking at 60 some snaps. It's not good. Like the production you're just not getting anything out of him. $12.4 million a year. You're not getting that value. I think that he should be traded. And so as long as Jonnu Smith doesn't get injured, you can absolutely stomach a Freiermuth trade. You can get maybe some draft capital for next year. Maybe swap him. Maybe you include him in a deal with one of these teams. Maybe the Saints or whoever would want a kind of a stable option on an affordable deal. Steelers obviously paid Freiermuth's guaranteed money, and so he would be relatively cheap, and he's still under contract. So if you can do something like that with one of these teams that's willing to ditch a wide receiver on the last year of a deal or whatever, that might be worth it for him at this point, because he's used so sparingly that he's just, the impact is non-existent. I had these numbers here somewhere too. I won't worry about finding them right now, but yes, he was last in or second to last in snaps, I think, among tight ends this week as well. Outsnapped by Spencer Anderson 2 weeks in a row, I believe. And so not great when Anderson is your 6th offensive lineman coming in for tight end snaps. You're just not using the guy. And quite frankly, some people will say, well, you got to get him involved. I don't know if you do, because if getting him involved means taking Darnell off the field, I don't want that. And so if you're swapping him with Jonnu, that's what they've kind of already been doing. Jonnu and Freiermuth have been playing very similar snaps, but there are more plays designed to get Jonnu Smith the ball because of his yak ability. More screens and that kind of stuff. Freiermuth just doesn't have that. And because of that, I mean, maybe it is time to turn the page there. That's our thoughts on the wide receiver tight end group there. Let's move on to the offensive line really quick, Shayne, and we'll pick up the pace a little bit on this now. Mm-hmm. The offensive line did okay. And I say that because when you go back and watch the L22, you're not holding up for a long time. The ball's coming out fast. I think we're kind of overrating. A lot of fans are maybe overrating what Broderick Jones did against Myles Garrett in this game. The L22 was not super impressive because the ball was out of there so fast that if it's held on any longer by Rodgers, Garrett's going to have a big game in this one. And again, it's Myles Garrett. What do you expect is going to happen? But I think that it was just an adequate game by the offensive line so far. I thought the interior was probably better than tackle play. I thought Troy Fautanu did a good job at right tackle. Broderick still a pretty shaky performance because, again, as a tackle, as an offensive lineman, you're only as good as your 5 or 6 or 7 worst plays. And I thought that those were still pretty poor from Broderick.
Yeah, I don't know if, because we were talking about PFF earlier. I don't know if he had an 18 pass blocking grade necessarily, but like they said he did. But I think, again, like their game plan against Garrett was really successful. I don't know if they were necessarily successful at actually like stopping Myles Garrett so much as they were successful at avoiding him. And honestly, that's all you need to do for against a Browns team that kind of relies on him to just wreck the game for them a lot of the time. I'm not saying that other players haven't played really well. Malik Collins has been great for them. I think Alex Wright has been a good player for them. Like it just, if you can stop Garrett from wrecking the game, you could probably have success against this Browns team, especially in the secondary where, like, to be fair, his first game here, Tyson Campbell was just not good. Like it was bad, and I don't know why they decided to make that trade.
You don't see that often, corner for corner,
it doesn't. I don't know if it was just they thought he would be a better fit than Newsome. It was weird. That one's strange to me, but whatever. In general, I think the offensive line played fine. I think that they did their job. I think the interior, like you said, is still the best group on this team. I think you're hoping Fautanu can still be the player that we all hoped he'd be. I do think that's the potential is there for him. And with Broderick, I'm just going to assume he's not going to do that until he does. That's kind of where I'm at with
it. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that if anything, Shayne, we're seeing baby steps with this team. Now, Browns, to their credit, they've got a really good defense. They've got the defensive player of the year and just a perennial all-pro who is one of the hardest guys in the league to stop. So I think that there's room for things to get better from here. Now you still have a matchup this week we'll talk about here as well. But I thought it was an okay job by the offensive line overall. Let's talk about the defense. We're going to save our guy Nick Herbig for just a second here because we'll get to him. I'm very, very pleased by what we saw with Herbig. I thought the rest of the edge rushers, though, did really good job. Even Jack Sawyer coming off the bench for his 24 snaps. Watt was solid in this game, had 6 pressures, despite being, again, the most frequently chipped player in the league. Matt Williamson put out that stat. Again, I think recently, it was Matt Williamson that put out that stat about his Watt's chip rate. Alex Highsmith did some nice things in this game. I thought he was the least notable of the top 3, but overall really good. And then the interior defensive line, Shayne, as good as you could have asked for, completely bottled up the running game in this one. Quinshon Judkins had 12 carries for 36 yards. That's 3.0 per carry. And considering what Judkins has already done a few times this season, that's as good as you could have hoped for in this contest. No complaints at all. I thought the front 7 was the strength of this team.
Absolutely. I think I wrote about this when, in the lead up to the game, that if the Steelers did one thing in this game, that they would win almost assuredly, and that was stop the run for the Browns. If you could keep them from being able to control the game with the ground game like they did against the Vikings, like they have against other teams, and give themselves a chance to win, if you were able to keep them from doing it, they did not have a recourse. And we saw that because the recourse was 58 dropbacks from Dylan Gabriel, which is maybe never should happen, maybe even at the college level. Like,
that's crazy.
It just is really insane that they, again, game situation forced it, but like for them to even allow him to drop back 58 times is bonkers. Like, just doesn't make a lot of sense. But that was the game plan, right? Like, if you could keep Judkins from breaking off a couple runs, getting them in a field goal range, or even getting a touchdown, then you were probably going to win. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, man, it shows you the importance too of scoring some of those points early. So then it gives you the ability to tee off on teams like that. It worked out. I mean, obviously just perfectly in Steelers' favor. The game plan went exactly as they had hoped. They forced the rookie quarterback in his second NFL game to pass the ball a bunch, was sacked 6 times. Just a really, really strong defensive performance overall. Linebackers in this game, Shayne, I thought they were both better than their PFF grades might have suggested, where I think they were at like a 63 and a 56 or something that way for Peyton Wilson and Patrick Queen, respectively. Cole Holcomb also got a good bit of usage there as well. I think the only complaint I would have is still some miscommunication at linebacker, still some giving up, just kind of getting nickeled and dimed in zone coverage there. Gabriel, to his credit, was accurate over the middle field, threw some hospital balls to Njoku and a couple of his receivers there. But I think that would be the only complaint I have. Other than that, I mean, like downhill aggressiveness, sideline, everything, linebackers were really good in this one.
Yeah, that was probably the best version we've seen of the two of them this year, for sure. I think in general, there's been a lot of conversation in our personal Still Curtain chat on Twitter about Patrick Queen. I still have a lot of reservations about calling him a good player, let alone a great player. But I do think he has been more of the version that they were hoping him to be this year, especially as just like a downhill run defender who can run and chase as well. Peyton Wilson is the one I really want to see kind of improve, and especially in coverage this week, I think he definitely did. I think that's where he obviously want him to be the best, is in coverage, ideally. So the linebackers in general, I do think played probably their best game overall this year.
Absolutely. We got a chat here chiming in. Calvin Austin 3 is out, and Miles Kilbrew, obviously. Yeah, that one. And that I just saw the Brooke Pryor tweet. Thanks for chiming in, Tyrone, for that. So yes, no Calvin Austin this week for Thursday Night Football. Not surprising based on the injury report so far, but now we've got that. We do have that confirmation. All right, Shayne, let's talk about the secondary real quick here. Joey Porter, fantastic game. And again, it's not like the Browns have the cream of the crop at receiver, and it's not like they have a great quarterback. Maybe this week will be obviously more of a challenge based on who you're matched up against. But I thought it was maybe the best game that Joey Porter's ever played before. Played a ton of snaps, was very effective. You just couldn't pass on him in this one. I thought he did a really good job.
Yeah, he especially looked really good. Like, this is the type of game that you wanted to see from Joey when he was drafted. Like, just be sticky in coverage, really hard to get away from with the long arms and all that stuff, but also not so grabby that you get called for penalties constantly, right? Like, that's the balance is what we've been missing from him. Like, he doesn't allow a ton of stuff typically in coverage, but it's because he just doesn't let the guy catch the ball because he's like, well, I'm just going to hold on to you until the play's over. It's like, all right, well, that works if they don't call it. but it doesn't really work that way a lot of the time, Joey. So, yeah, he definitely had a really standout game, and they're going to need it this week, especially, right? Like with who they're playing. I know that the offense still has had trouble getting going for the Bengals, but still going to have to cover those guys.
Yeah, and Porter, by PFF's charting, allowed just 26 yards on 6 targets in his direction. Also made 2 defensive stops and had 5 tackles in this game. Thought it was a really strong performance overall, and he ended up earning an 82 overall grade from that, one of the best of his career. Just pretty strong by the secondary overall. I mean, I thought that Elliott played well. I thought that they had just it was everything that you could have asked the secondary to do, and obviously the results speak for themselves. The Browns couldn't really pass the ball effectively. All right, Shayne, let's hit special teams real quick. And obviously the big note here, 2 of them actually. Chris Boswell slipping on the terrible stinking grass field again in Pittsburgh, which that's sparking these conversations, even on the Pat McAfee show. Should the Steelers be sharing a field with a college football team? Like, I don't know why there are these troubles.
The answer to that is
it's $1 billion business.
Professional team. Like, I'm not saying it isn't cool for the Pitt team to be able to play at Heinz, Acrisure, or whatever, but like it's just weird. It is dumb to me that it's not quite as bad as like the Oakland Coliseum situation, the way that was. Like, it's not that bad.
Oh, that was
but
running in the dirt.
Yeah. But it's not that, especially because that didn't overlap for very long. But the whole thing with it is no. Yeah, the answer to that question is no. They should not be sharing a field if you're being honest about it. But also, like, you can't let the field conditions get to that point. You can't do it. Chris Boswell can't miss a game, or he can't miss a kick normally. It's always like a stupid kick that he shouldn't have been trying, or it's that, right? Like this guy would have almost no misses if they weren't trotting him out there in weird situations. Now, obviously that one is just a slip. It happens, but like I feel bad for him because like people are like, oh, he missed a 50-yard this week. It's like, did he, or did the field miss a 50-yard?
I mean, there should be an asterisk next to that miss in the box score there. And how livid would Steelers fans be right now if that would have resulted in a broken ankle or something ridiculous? Because
the game
So, I mean, that could be a catastrophic injury to your kicker, and it's not something you should ever have to think about. Is my kicker stepped on some bad footing and
foot,
So that was one note there. Steelers obviously left a few points on the board because of that, and then the other, obviously the huge one, Shayne, is Miles Killebrew suffered the non-contact knee injury. Does not look good. No. And that was their special teams captain. They're all pro special teams players, so that's going to be a fairly significant loss there.
Yeah, I think so. It's something a lot of people don't think about very often, but special teams matter at times, especially along the margins. Like how many times Aaron Rodgers knows how important special teams is. His special teams let him down multiple times in the playoffs and led to losses. So he especially is probably not very happy about that situation.
All right. If you are a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers and would like to support the Still Curtain podcast, please consider subscribing to the Still Curtain podcast on YouTube. We appreciate all of your support. If you like this show, tell your friends about it. Leave us a comment. Leave us a like down below. We greatly appreciate that. All right, Shayne, let's talk about Nick Herbig. Can't go into week 7 without talking about the game that he just had against the Cleveland Browns, the game of his career. And Shayne, I think that this is the game that we can really get the conversation started. When we've had conversations before about should Nick Herbig start over Alex Highsmith. I want to skip right past that conversation and say, is Nick Herbig the next superstar on the Steelers? That seems like a bold take. Maybe it is, but we're in year 3 of Nick Herbig now. We've seen some excellent pass rush ability from this young player. By the way, he's 23 years old in his 3rd NFL season right now. He's younger than some of the guys that were drafted just this past April.
Yeah.
And now he's coming off the game of his life. He earned a 94.8 overall grade in this game from Pro Football Focus, 6 pressures, 2 sacks, 2 run stops. I mean, he was all over the field. And you go back and watch the all 22, it's every bit as impressive as his grade would indicate. I mean, he was doing it from the straight shooting right up the A gap. I mean, off either edge position. He was electrifying in this game and, dare I say, showed some glimpses, not all, but some glimpses of a Micah Parsons level performance, at least in terms of the speed, not the power, but at least in terms of the speed and winning from any which direction, any assignment that you put him in. He was winning and winning routinely in this game. It was an awesome performance, Shayne. And now Nick Herbig is tied with Will Anderson as the 5th overall edge rusher in the NFL right now, with over a 90 PFF grade entering week 7. A third of the way through the season, he's on track to be a top 5 edge rusher in the NFL in terms of his grade. But it doesn't end there, Shayne, because I want to give you his projected stats right now. If Herbig were to continue at this pace, and let me add further context here. He missed week 1 as he was still recovering from a hamstring injury that he suffered in the preseason. So that's one game that he didn't even play this year. So that brings him down to 4 games played. And by the way, in the 2 games that Highsmith and Herbig have overlapped, Herbig has played fewer snaps in those games.
Right.
And so a couple factors going against Herbig, he came off the bench, but he did find a way to play the most snaps for the Steelers, in which we'll talk about that. And I think that he absolutely deserves to be that guy moving forward based on his youth and what he offers as a pass rusher. But in 4 games played, Shayne, Nick Herbig is on a 2025 season pace to have 15.5 sacks, 20 tackles for a loss, 51 quarterback hits, and 68 pressures. That is with missing a game and splitting time with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. How impressive has Nick Herbig been so far?
I mean, he's been phenomenal. And I think the question that you've been posing about, is he the next superstar for the team? I think he already is. I don't think there's any reason to think that he's not. We've seen this type of flash from him when he's been given enough playing time to make good on it. I think the question has always been, and I think it's still technically a question, and I think it's why the conversation about whether or not Highsmith should be traded or whether this or that is kind of something I don't even really want to talk about, is can he be a full-time 60 snap a game, setting the edge rusher, as well as do the stuff he does as a pass rusher? That's really been my only reservation about him pretty much since we saw him get on the field as a rookie even, right? Like, you could immediately tell, like, this guy has next level juice, like the type that a lot of tackles who aren't fleet of foot just simply can't stay with no matter what they do. And if they are able to stay with him, it's only because they overset, and then that gives him an inside counter, which with his agility, like, you're not going to stop that either, right? So as a pass rusher, I think he's already ascended to that level of a superstar level pass rusher, at least so far this season. I do wonder, is the best thing for him to move into that, like, full on, like what we've seen TJ Watt have to do of like the 60, 70 snaps, play the run, play the pass, all that stuff. I don't know that at this point. I feel like being a smaller player, him being a designated pass rusher type, is still probably the most efficient way to use him. But you could still be a superstar in that role, like, especially with the way the NFL is now. Like, if you can do what he's doing as a pass rusher, even if you play 30, 40 snaps a game, you're going to end up with stats that signify that you're a top 5, top 10 pass rusher in the sport.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree with that assessment as well, Shayne. I think that you want to use him every down, as a passing down. Herbig needs to be on the field. I don't care if it's with 2 edge rushers,
it doesn't matter what it is,
or with 3. And they experimented with that. Looked kind of like a Dan Quinn defense a little bit at times.
Yeah.
So I give Terrell Austin, a little bit of credit there for getting 3 edges on the field at the same time, taking a big guy off when it's 3rd and long, and you don't necessarily need the big guy. You need quick pressure, and that's what Herbig provides. And he can do it, like I said, A gap, B gap, rushing off the edge, wherever you put him, he can do that, and he can do it at a, dare I say, higher rate than anybody on the team, and that includes TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. He's that good as a pure pass rusher. I agree with the overall assessment of his game. He is not the most stout run defender, though I don't think that he's like a complete liability in that area.
He's a playmaker, not a, like, TJ is a playmaker, but he's also, like, teams can't run at him, right?
Yes, for sure.
Nick is
he's
more
apt
of
to flip the blocks rather than just take them head on and double teams and all that kind of stuff. And he can go against double teams as a pass rusher. You don't really want to see as run blocker, but I don't think that they're going to devote that type of attention to him in that regard. But just to show you what kind of company he's in right now, Shayne, at the top of the list in PFF's overall grades right now, Micah Parsons, Aiden Hutchinson, Myles Garrett, Jared Verse, and Nick Herbig. That's where he is. Like, he is with the best of the best. By the way, TJ Watt's down there a little ways, hasn't had the same pass rush grade, partially because he's seeing the league high in chips again. He's getting double teamed at a high rate, though he's not overcoming it like he may have been able to do in his earlier years had he seen said attention. But just so impressed with Herbig right now. And Shayne, I'll ask you a question out of the blue. We did not prep for this at all. Considering his age, the fact that he's 23 years old and he comes at a money 5 position, maybe the second or third most important position in the game as an edge rusher outside of just quarterback, wide receiver, where would you put him among all of the Steelers players in terms of his value, not just this season, but moving forward when you consider his youth and his ability?
I think if we're talking this season, he's got to be one of the 3. Like, because TJ is as valuable as he is, like, you could argue that he's been less valuable as a pass rusher. I think he's probably more valuable overall as a player still, just because of what he can do as a run defender. But it's getting close, and that's not a slight at TJ. You talked about the names that Herbig is being brought up with right now in terms of pass rush ability. Moving forward, I mean, is there a player that has the combination of youth and ability that he showed on this team? Just like, I don't know if there's anyone above him in that regard. I don't. And that's, again, like, normally I'd say, your 4th round pick from a couple years ago being the most valuable player you have is not good. But when he's playing like he is, I don't really think it's a slight towards the team that much. Like, we'll see what Derek can do. Obviously, Derek Harmon, like, that's kind of the guy that you want to look at that might be able to change that narrative. But other than him, I don't know if there's a good answer other than Nick. So
yeah, and I think that it's okay to make a case that he's number 1 in terms of value for the future of this team. He's a lot younger than TJ Watt. I mean, we're talking like an 8-year difference between the two. And maybe that's how much he has left in the tank still. There's not a chance the Steelers should let him walk away. And we'll have that conversation down the road because he'll be up for a contract extension. What that looks like will largely maybe depend on where things go from here. If he has that type of season, I mean, that would be like the 3rd best season that TJ Watt has had before in terms of
teams will be willing to pay him if they don't pay him. So
what's wild, Shayne, is that I'm not all that surprised by it because when you watch Nick Herbig, what he did in his final 2 seasons at Wisconsin, and you're a Wisconsin fan, you watched a ton of him. It's not that surprising. He was phenomenal. He didn't get underdrafted because of his lack of athletic traits or lack of pass rush ability. It was strictly because of his size. He was 6'2", 240 pounds soaking wet, and he didn't have the length that you want to see for edge rushers, just 31.5-inch arms or change, something like that. Not big, but we're coming to find out that just doesn't matter that much when you can win in any way with a variety of moves. You've got unmatched burst and bend off the edge. Like, I'm just so impressed with this guy as a pure pass rusher. The Steelers cannot let him get away under any circumstances. And you brought up Alex Highsmith, Shayne. There are already whispers, could you trade Highsmith for A.J. Brown or send him back? And I don't want to. I want a healthy, deep edge rusher rotation. It's TJ really Watt. Hard. I want him to play fewer snaps every single season. That includes this year. And he should be 2nd or even 3rd in that group in snaps, despite how much you paid him, because you need to keep him fresh for the postseason. It's not going to matter if your 31-year-old pass rusher is not fresh in January. And so that's the big thing here. And I think that Herbig allows them to do that with flying colors. Easily the best 3rd edge rusher in the NFL. Shouldn't even be he's too good to be a 3rd edge rusher.
Yeah, he's 3rd in the sense of, like, you have 2 established guys ahead of him, but you really don't anymore. Like you said, like, it's not really quite that way. I will say, going back to the draft situation, like, whenever he was coming out, there's a lot of talk about, was he going to end up becoming maybe more of like that Sam linebacker type, where if, like, not truly a linebacker, but not truly an edge rusher, like, was he going to kind of float between, because he's so athletic? They're like, we could play him at off ball. I'm sure he could figure it out. And at the time I was like, but he's so good moving forward, man. Don't do that. Like, don't do that. And of course, Steelers were like, no, he's an edge rusher. I'm like, they know.
And thank goodness they left him there too.
They know what it's like to get.
That's what we're saying. I mean, the evaluation felt pretty easy to leave him there and at least see that if he could hold up.
Yeah,
because that was his game for sure. But thank goodness they did, because it's really paying dividends so far. And that 2023 draft class, Shayne, it's been kind of up and down. Now, recently with Herbig and Darnell Washington, it's looking strong again. And so Definitely impressed with that so far. All right, Shayne, let's move on. Spent a lot of time talking about Herbig. Let's get to our matchup for Steelers versus Bengals Thursday Night Football, Week 7. The biggest storyline here, if we're not talking about the Icy Hot Bowl, which is the 40-year-old quarterback matchup, it's for sure Mike Tomlin's egregiously poor record on the road on Thursday Night Football. And not just that, Shayne, but it's his record against divisional opponents on the road on Thursday Night Football that is catastrophically bad. And so if you're not aware, the Steelers are now in their last 10 games under Mike Tomlin on Thursday Night Football. They are 2-8 on the road on Thursday Night Football in general, because you're going on the road in a short week. It kind of makes sense in a way. You're not going to play as well in those, but it gets even worse when you break it down in terms of against divisional opponents on the road on Thursday Night Football. They are 0-6. And Shayne, so if you combine this 0-6 record on the road against the AFC North on Thursday Night Football with the fact that the Steelers are 11-11 against quarterback Joe Flacco all time under Mike Tomlin, you get a kind of a scary situation, the makings of a potential upset here. Are you nervous a little bit based on this history that the Steelers have?
Yeah. I think you should be if you're a Steelers fan. Again, there's people talking about last week, like, oh, it's just going to be a trap game. I was a little bit hesitant to even consider that being a trap game because just everything was going against the Browns, to be fair. Like, literally every possible thing was going against the Browns. So it felt like they couldn't overcome that if they tried. This week, it's going to be Joe Flacco's second attempt at playing quarterback for the Bengals. He just got, obviously, his first recently. It's a quick turnaround. They're probably going to simplify things on offense a little bit, even more so than they probably did in week one with Flacco at least being there. Yeah, I could see them. I really could see this Bengals team just managing to eke out like a 20-17 win or something like that. I really could. And it sucks because I think this is the type of game that the Steelers really need to win to just really put their foot on the neck of the rest of the AFC North and be like, no, it's over. Like, if you thought it wasn't over, it's over. Because if they win this game, if the Bengals win this game, they're not that far back from us. Now, do I think they're going to be able to keep winning games after that? Not really. But it still just gives them that little glimmer of hope. And that's not what you want if you're the Steelers. You want to just put this thing to bed like as soon as you possibly can so you can focus on other things. Yeah. But this definitely it's a bad omen. Let me put it that way with the way they play on Thursday Night Football. So.
You said it, Shayne, 100%. Bury them right now. And that way they feel like the Bengals feel like they have no hope and the Steelers have all the confidence in the world after that. That is the hope. That's what we hope happens in this game. We'll see what happens. We'll give our predictions in just a second. Shayne, let's talk about the matchups to watch against the Bengals. Now, this team, it's kind of been the same story the last 3-4 years. Yeah. It is a stud and dud roster in every single sense. Like, you've got really bad players starting and you've got some superstars starting. Now, you have obviously one less with Joe Burrow, which makes the game much less threatening than it otherwise could have been. Still not a walk in the park, as we've seen with those statistics. But the big one, Shayne, how do you stop Ja'Marr Chase? I mean, this guy destroyed you in week 17 last year. And just to kind of rehash what happened in that game, the Steelers were depleted at the cornerback position. Terrell Lawson had just an atrocious game plan. It was Corey Trice's first ever start in the NFL. And he was left on an island with Steelers playing a lot of cover one. And he was covering Ja'Marr Chase one-on-one. And I thought that Trice was in really good position on a lot of those, but the connection was so strong with Burrow and Chase. It was just every pass was pinpoint. There was nothing Trice could have done in that game. In a way, Shayne, I kind of wish that Trice would have been activated and maybe get that redemption game. Did you hear? I mean, going back a ways now, but he said after that, it will never happen again. And he wanted that rematch so bad. Doesn't look like he's been activated. Doesn't look like he's been ready to play. So the Steelers, by the way, are a little bit banged up in the secondary. Darius Slay has been dealing with issues and
on and off. It feels like all year.
Yeah, Corey. I mean, Joey Porter was evaluated for a concussion recently, and so they have not been the healthiest secondary for sure. But we're going to see some big matchups in this one. I'm sure that we'll see Porter on Chase at times. We'll definitely see Jalen Ramsey on Chase, and the Bengals will probably move Chase around, try to get him the best matchup. In the past, Porter's played a ton on T. Higgins, and that's the other matchup that we'll watch in this one. Can they contain this superstar pairing of wide receivers, maybe the best pairing of wide receivers in the league right now?
I think they can, and it's because the same reason that any team against this Bengals team has been able to in the past, whether it's Joe Burrow, quarterback, or someone else. Can the offensive line give him time to get the ball down the field? Because, you could try to get some shorter stuff to those two, and especially Jamar could break one with that because of how great he is after the catch. But if you're trying to get these, deep developing routes or down the field stuff, you have to have time to do that, and this offensive line just simply hasn't been able to give anyone that time for a long time for the most part. And especially, the interior of this team is just so brutal. Center Ted Karras is fine as a pass blocker still. He's not great, but he's fine. Everyone else they've had in that interior the past couple of years has just been a turnstile. It's just impossible, especially an older quarterback like Flacco. He's not going to be able to run away from the interior rush. If Cam has a great game, which he tends to do against his team, if Keanu Benton and Derek Carr and all those guys, if they can all do that stuff, it's going to be really hard for them to push the ball down the field. And if that's the case, you can sit on those shorter routes and just not allow them to do much with them. So.
All right, Shayne, another matchup I want to talk about. The Bengals offensive tackles trying to contain Pittsburgh's pass rush, which was coming off of an excellent game against the Browns. The Browns had so many struggles, and to their defense, they've had a ton of injuries. They've had to rotate guys in at tackle, so that certainly doesn't help. The Bengals, though, they've got some mammoth offensive tackles in Orlando Brown Jr., Amarius Mims. This just feels like another Nick Herbig feast type game potentially, because he can counter exactly what those guys don't do well. It's bend and get low against those speed rushers. I think that Herbig has the potential to have another really nice game here. What do you see? How do you see this matchup shaking out with these?
Yeah, Orlando Brown Jr. might be the worst starting tackle for dealing with Nick Herbig. He is truly I'm going to just envelop you with my size. And Nick Herbig is just going to say, well, what if you don't touch me? Because I'm already past you by the time you're in your kick slide. That's a bad matchup.
Mm-hmm.
I legitimately think Joe Flacco should probably wear some extra padding this week. There's going to be one of those snaps where he gets off the snap particularly well. And before Flacco even finishes drop back, he's just going to get planted from behind. It feels like that's coming. And obviously, I don't want to jinx him or anything like that. He's been so good. I don't want to say that he's going to just keep dominating necessarily. But this just, again, it feels like a bad matchup for the Bengals, for especially Herbig, right? Highsmith has gotten his against his team. Obviously, Watt has too. I think Watt will probably give Mims a hard day, obviously. But especially that left tackle situation. Leonard Brown Jr. He's been fine. He might be their best offensive lineman still, which is not great in 2025. It's just not. It's a tough matchup for that group.
It is. And it's not just for them. It's the Bengals interior or offensive line too. You talk about Dylan Fairchild against Cam Hayward. That's rough. We'll see.
It's not great.
No. And all those guys, collectively as a unit, it's just, they've been struggling. The Bengals offensive line has struggled. So should feed into Pittsburgh's strengths in this game. We're just talking about how good their front seven was against the Browns. We can see much of the same. I would hope, at least on Thursday Night Football. But again, if we go back and look at the last few times the Steelers have played on the road on Thursday Night Football, they just come out flat. And so I hope that's not the case again this week, Shayne, obviously. Any other matchups you want to get to before we get our predictions here?
Again, the run defense versus this Bengals team, they're the worst run blocking group in a very long time. Just horrendous. And Chase Brown, got to give him credit for trying, but he just doesn't have a lot of room. It's just not.
You're only as good as your offensive line.
To a certain degree. To a certain degree. Because there's guys like him that are really explosive. They can do stuff. But when you're this bad at run blocking that again, take PFF grades how you will. They have a 37 run block grade. That's really hard to do as a team. That's
well, you can see when you watch it too.
They're just not good.
I think it was it Warren Sharp? Someone on Twitter was putting every single Chase Brown carry for the whole season, and it's bunch of -1s, bunch of 0-yard runs, bunch of 1 and 2 and 3 yard.
His yards before contact have to be it have to be so bad. There's no way.
Yeah.
It's terrible. So yeah, that's one definitely to watch for sure too.
So in another one, Shayne, obviously that we'll have eyes on is Broderick Jones against Trey Hendrickson. But is Hendrickson, because what's the latest on him?
I don't know if he
What's the latest? Let me
practiced.
see.
I was going to look that up too.
I'm trying to see if he cleared. If not, that Steelers catch a huge break because clearly a top 3 player on the roster, top 2-ish player on the roster right now without Joe Burrow. Let's find out. Let's see if we can find the latest on him really quickly before we give our predictions here. I know he didn't practice earlier in the week.
Yeah.
Seeing anything, Shayne?
Let me see.
Okay. No recent updates from what I can tell. So just something to keep an eye on. Obviously, if he didn't practice today.
I think he's going to be limited. Oh, he's declared. Wait. No, never mind. Sorry. It's wrong.
Yeah. I've got nothing popping up here.
Nothing specific. I would guess that if he is going to miss the game, then obviously I think it's more so if he does play, it's not going to be a full.
We'll probably find out like as soon as the show is over with, because anytime now they probably should have that final injury report up here. But that Steelers will catch a huge break, obviously, if Hendrickson doesn't play. If he does play, if he's healthy enough to go, obviously he's the type of rusher that can still give Broderick fits. We'll see where he lands, and if he does play, if he's how much he's able to suit up for. All right, Shayne, let's move on to our predictions. We've had a longest show today. Mm-hmm. So what do you think? I mean, we talked about the concerning Thursday Night Football road statistics for Mike Tomlin. We talked about the concerning Joe Flacco statistics, 500 record against him. How do you see this one going for the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 7? Do they advance to 5-1 and potentially, Shayne, claim the lead in the entire AFC this week? Is that possible?
I think it's possible. I think I have to still, just with the way this team is playing, with the way the Bengals are playing, I have to pick them to win, but I am wary of it. I do think it's going to be a very close game, just given what they've done on Thursday Night Football in recent years. I'm going to say 20-17. The Steelers pull it out. I think it's going to maybe take either a field goal at the end to win it, or they're going to hang on 20-17 after maybe going up early in the game. But I do think that they can pull this one out. And if they do, like we talked about, it really kind of puts this division maybe to rest already, despite just being a third of the way through the season.
All right, Shayne, I've gone back and forth on this because part of me wants to go with the history that we've seen from this team and say, yeah, I would almost predict an upset here, but I'm picking the Steelers. The Steelers are flat out the better football team. I think Rodgers is better than Flacco. I think I'll go across the board. Other than receiver, they're better everywhere. They are better everywhere than the Bengals. And so they should win this game. Doesn't mean that it's a guarantee. I think it's going to be really close. I've got the Steelers winning 24-20. And my thought process behind that, kind of going up to the 44-point total there. If the Steelers were able to score 23 on the Browns defense, should have been 26 if Boswell didn't slip on the field goal. They better well be able to do it against the Bengals defense, which is one of the worst in the league. I think that they should be able to get there. At the same time, I think that the Bengals are going to score enough to make this a little bit uncomfortable for the Steelers. I've got Steelers 24-20. What do you guys think? Drop your predictions down below. Leave a comment with your predictions for Thursday Night Football. If you like this show, please tell your friends about it. We go live every single Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. Also, check out Josh Yorish's show. He goes live on Mondays at 1:30. They also do a post-game show right following the Steelers game. So make sure you check out Still Curtain for that as well. 3 live shows a week. You can follow me on X at Tommy Jaggi. You can follow Shayne on X at Shayne Kubas. You can download the Still Curtain podcast wherever you get your podcast. Also, check us out on YouTube or ask Alexa to listen to the Still Curtain Steelers podcast. Thanks again for listening to the Still Curtain podcast.